if you try to get out of the earth realm, you get too caught up in the astral realm. You get too caught up in the UFOs and the UAPs and the divine consciousness and the mystical realities and the transcendent outside of time super intelligence that we are all part of. Then you're basically skipping school. All of the most high-tech, manipulative strategies developed by psychologists, paid for by like various state entities who wanted to find out ways to like cause revolutions in other countries. What do I know? Oh, what, you were watching Fox and saw a commercial?
That's definitely the sound of sacred to me.
Honey, a meteor is gonna hit the earth. And she'd be like, Duncan, there's no meteor. You might not like what's happening. And I don't blame anybody for not liking what's happening, because what's happening is terrifying and fast. You're going to have a fucking security team of AI powered
Terminators.
Robots. And those things, you just need to put in the code. Don't fuck my wife.
Have you ever wondered if your company is maximizing the return of your data investment? Are you collecting the right data required to make informed decisions? Is there more that can be learned from our data? Koyas Institute can answer these questions and help you discover the hidden value within your data sets by utilizing a well-rounded approach to data analysis. Stop leaving value behind and start increasing the return on your data investment. The next generation of data analysis has begun. We are pioneers in pattern discovery. We are Koyas Institute.
Well, thanks for taking the time, bro. Appreciate it. Good to see you again. It only feels like a few days ago that we were talking to each other.
I know. That was a really fun podcast.
Dude, I loved it. I was listening back to it. I love the introduction you gave as well. I was laughing so much at that introduction.
Thank you.
I mean, you can vape during the show. I don't give a shit.
Thank you.
YouTube decided to demonetize me the other day.
What? For what?
Because I put up a couple of news clips of Ross talking to Dave Grush, and because it wasn't mine, they decided that was enough to completely demonetize my channel. So I sent them like,
so fucked up.
Dude, I sent them a video appeal. Like, you know, you have to go through all these stages and give them all these different specifics. So you have to go on video and talk about your channel. And I put up all the different interviews I've done over the years and said, look, it's just a couple of clips. The wide spectrum of my channel is my own work. It's my own stuff. And I got a response back just like, no, your video didn't represent your channel's like kind of content. I was like, oh, fuck you, dude. So
digital sharecropping, man. Digital sharecropping. It's so dangerous. It's like so unstable.
Yeah.
You never know. It seems like a lot of the rules they're not consistent. Like just out of the blue, you get the rug pulled out from under you. And like, it's very strange that you got to find is there some other service you can move to?
Yeah, I mean, I've been thinking about it, you know, like Spotify and even Twitter now is doing a subscription-based thing, so that, you know, might be able to
Patreon
leverage that. I use Patreon, like, thankfully, like most of my finance comes through Patreon. So like, you know, YouTube's great. It's good to have the ad revenue. I'm going to have to reapply in like September. They won't let me reapply until September, so I'll have to wait until then.
Oh my God.
And then, yeah, I know, dude, it sucks. And then hopefully get it back. But yeah, thankfully I've got some very great supportive Patreons and a sponsorship. So
I got banned from Discord because I was on a private server or a private board that uses Midjourney, like some Midjourney. I had no idea that I was violating their terms of service by asking, like, because we figured out like you could like say like we all just got into like, you know, saying like Bill Cosby eating like a giant sausage. And it would like then, you know, it's at one point before they nerfed it, you could say like eating human meat. And it would produce the most disturbing whoever eating human meat. And it would just spit out the funniest, grossest shit.
Right.
I had no idea that I was violating terms of service. To this, I'm still not. I'm thinking that's why they wouldn't tell me what I'd done, but I'm guessing that must be it. And same thing. I wrote this long, like, hey, I love Discord. I have nothing to gain. I mean, I just create a new account. I love Discord.
Right.
Didn't know. I'm sorry. I'll delete them. And the response was just like, no, you're done. Out. It's so, and it made me feel so bad, like so criminal.
Like you'd done something inherently wrong.
No, it's satanic, man. It's like you're, and you don't know whoever is like, you know, I guess I don't blame whoever like looked at
human meat. What the fuck?
They don't know me, so I guess you can only assume the worst.
Right.
I do have a hard out exactly at 1. I've got to jump into another meeting in 2 hours.
No worries. All right. Well, in that case, let me welcome you onto my podcast, Duncan. I've been a big fan of your work for a while. I love your series on Netflix, The Midnight Gospel. Your stand-up is hilarious. Your podcast is insightful. I think you have this perfect balance of intellect and intuition. I had a great time on your show a few days ago, and it's great to have you here on mine.
Thank you. Great to be here. I loved our podcast.
Yeah, dude. Yeah, I was sending it out and I got some good responses back. So yeah, big appreciation. I'm really happy to do that. And like it says in your description, kind of like a salon lounge type of podcast, and that's the feel, that's the vibe. It's nice and relaxed, and we were just shooting the shit.
Yeah, that's the idea. Just shoot the shit, see what happens.
See what happens. Well, I like that. You know, I don't really like to have a rigid structure for an interview, because then it kind of puts everyone in the same mood of like being a bit rigid and static and like, okay, question, answer. Yeah. I'd like to just try and make a friend during the conversation, you know, just explore ideas, and that's the methodology I think works best.
It does. Too much planning. I mean, you need to, like, obviously, if I don't know my guest, like it's nice to have some
background information
laid out.
Yeah.
Because some people, they're not podcasters. They don't know how to really do it, and they might be nervous, or so it's nice to have an arsenal of questions in case they aren't into the conversational thing. But I noticed in the early days when I was podcasting, if I got too fixated on the questions, I would miss asking questions in the moment related to what they were saying, and miss huge possible, like, amazing moments. And so I figured out a way to just have something prepared, contemplate who I'm talking to, and then just go into it with no real agenda.
Yeah. Just see where it goes. And I think that's kind of like what's been so beneficial about long form podcasting in comparison to like legacy media or very like kind of network based programming, is it's just like Joe Rogan is a perfect example. Just 3 hours, 4 hours, whatever, you know, we'll just sit and we'll just discuss and we'll move through the conversation. And people like that. They like the natural ebb and flow of a talk instead of it being like rigid and scripted. You know, it feels like we're moving more into kind of just normal conversations being broadcasted to millions of people.
Well, yeah, and the question thing, it was part of the medium of TV, which is a very time constrained medium, meaning if you're going to you need to get to the point and get it out.
Exactly, yeah.
And so emulating that as a podcaster is sort of, I think, not understanding fully the medium of podcasting and how freeing it is to not be trapped in, like, whenever I'm watching the news and they're like, okay, one more question, we've got 10 seconds. It's like, what the fuck is that?
For like a really globally important issue of something. Like, all right, 10 seconds of commentary. It's like
10 seconds. We've got 10 seconds to talk about the UAPs that swarmed the Nimitz. Whoever they're talking to will try to say something in 10 seconds, and then it's a fucking Ozempic commercial. And you're like, what dystopia am I living in? I don't think you guys have pharmaceutical commercials.
No, dude, this is one thing that really, because I've been, especially over the last year, kind of going back and forth from the States. I love New York City, and I've been visiting New York quite a few times, and staying with a friend and watching the commercials. And you guys, I think it's America and New Zealand. That's like it. America and New Zealand.
That's it. Yeah. And that is why there are so many fucking problems.
Yeah,
that is why. It's just you cannot advertise medicine to people who aren't doctors.
Right.
I went to my doctor And I was like, should I get on testosterone? Because I've been watching all these testosterone commercials. And his response is, you got to stop watching those commercials. Like you can't. Like, no, no.
This isn't how you get biceps, Duncan.
Literally the exact opposite happened, because the commercials make it seem like, mention it to your care provider.
Right.
Seem like your doctor is going to be like, oh yeah, thank you so much for mentioning this medicine to me. You know, I only went to medical school for 15 fucking years. What do I know? Oh, what? You were watching Fox and saw a commercial for Ozempic? Of course, I didn't think of that. I was going to prescribe insulin to your diabetic ass, but no, Ozempic. Thank you. Ozempic, of course.
Yeah, it's a weird phenomenon, man. Like, it is definitely something that took a little bit of getting used to, and I would say it's still a shock each time. Like, some of the ones that like, there was one that really caught my eye, and it was like it was an advert, it was a commercial for like some sort of ADHD medication for kids, and it was, you know, that weird juxtaposition of like a happy family, everyone's smiling, and then at the bottom it says like may cause suicidal ideation. It's just like,
they have to say it,
dude. Like, it's so crazy that you know that can be advertised on a television in the middle of the day. And so we don't have that. Like, we don't have that. So it's definitely a culture shock when you see that level of influence. And, you know, people have pointed this out. There's that montage of sponsored by Pfizer, all of the different media networks, CNN, NBC. Like, you know, it's a worrying level of influence that the pharmaceutical companies have. That's for sure.
Yeah, and it's, you know, it's not just the pharmaceutical companies,
of course
the
not.
military industrial complex. It's like weapons manufacturers. And where it gets really fucked up, see, I didn't know this. This is where it gets really insidious. I doubt y'all do it over there. But here, not only do you get the advertisements, but they will do news stories that seem like news stories, but they're sponsored stories. And my friend used to work for a small, like, TV station, and so Gatorade would be like, okay, we're gonna give you money to do a story in Gatorade, but obviously you can't say this is sponsored by Gatorade. I think maybe now you have to. I don't know for sure about that. So he would go out and shoot a story. The subject: what is the best way to hydrate during the summer? And as it turns out, Gatorade.
What a coincidence!
What a coincidence! And so the whole thing was a commercial. So in the late night shows, the opening monologues, the sponsors pay them to work into the opening monologues things that seem like spontaneous jokes about like Wendy's, Burger King, McDonald's, or whatever, all paid.
Just planting those seeds, seeds.
Man, yes, it's so fucked up. So not only are you're getting the overt conditioning, because to me, in all commercials, what's happening when you're watching them is you're being shown some perfect version of life. So the families are always happy, the colors are always bright. The world that it's showing is not the world that we're in. If you're watching it and you're living in the normal world and you see that, you subconsciously are being told, if you're not in this world, something must be wrong.
Something's wrong. I guess I need that medication. I guess I need that drink or that car. Or
that's it. And that's really what's going on. Whatever it is that they're talking about is irrelevant to the blast of an alternate reality that looks like fucking like one multiverse slice away from ours. And Jesus Christ, what a great world it is. It's a multicultural world. Everyone's getting along, everyone's healing, everyone's happy, everyone's fucking healthy. And it's just not where we're at yet.
Right.
Then to add to it, oh, here you are. Here, this fucking snake oil is gonna shift you into an alternate timeline that you should already be in, you unhealthy fuck. That's what, your marriage isn't working. Obviously you need a Range Rover. Obviously you need a new car. You're stuck inside all the time. As soon as you buy this car, you're going to be at the Grand Canyon with your family. Your kids are going to be looking up at you like, oh my God, at last I have a good dad. At last I have a dad who cares about me, instead of this alcoholic shit bag that's been fucking farting on the couch playing Diablo 4 for the last month. It's satanic, man. It really is. Like, and it's not regulated at all. Like, you are allowed to use all of the most high-tech manipulative manipulative strategies developed by psychologists, paid for by like various state entities who wanted to find out ways to like cause revolutions in other countries. You hire people who have like spent their entire lives learning about how to manipulate the human nervous system. None of that's regulated. None of it.
Right.
I mean, not just like the fact you can advertise medicine, but that you can, the way you advertise medicine is essentially like casting a spell on unsuspecting people who are relaxed because they're sitting down finally after working all day. They're wide open, baby, and you just fucking machine gun subliminal manipulative marketing techniques right into their brains, and they don't even know what's happening. Not unregulated, completely okay.
Yeah, and this is like, it's the same with smartphones and smart devices. A lot of these tech billionaires, they don't let their kids use this stuff. They don't let them use TikTok and, Snapchat and all this stuff. They know that it's affecting people on a really subconscious level. I mean, my mom's a teacher, and she's seen it, like the change that's occurred in terms of like attention span and like ADD becoming more prominent, like people, kids who are being influenced by the smartphones and social media. It's like, dude, I use Twitter obviously for Project Unity, and I didn't use Twitter before then. I created it because I felt it was necessary for Project Unity, and obviously I use it to put my interviews out there and stuff. But it sucked me in, dude. It sucked me in, and I'll find myself arguing with some stranger I don't even know about some ridiculous concept, and I have to like sit back and sober up and be like, what the fuck am I doing? Like, none of this matters. None of this actually matters.
Well, and I add to that the statistics coming out about the AI bots that are on it.
Yeah.
Now, there's a wonderful subreddit where it's only AI bots. So the whole subreddit is an AI will post something emulating like whatever its particular, like what it's been trained on, whatever site. So they train the AIs on different subreddits. So an AI trained on one subreddit will post something, and then a swarm of AIs trained on other subreddits will respond. And it is, sometimes you can tell this is not a human, and sometimes you can't, to the point where once I forgot that I left that up on Reddit and thought I was looking on the front page. I'm just reading posts by AI. All of it's false. None of it is real at all. And I'm like getting pulled in, and it's all AI. So when you imagine that potentially if you are succumbing to the very powerful urge to argue with someone who appears to be the dumbest person you've ever seen in the world, who is like portraying you in a way that is absolutely nuts, and also doing it in an easily debunkable way, or a way that you could easily just say, look, this is not true. You have to consider that might not even be a person.
Right.
You're getting in you're getting an argument with an android,
and it's like algorithmically programmed to disagree with you no matter what,
Right, exactly. And it's just spreading itself out and anytime there's engagement, it brings more attention to its account, gets those followers. When it gets a certain number of followers, changes the name of its account, deletes all its posts, and becomes like another person altogether, and then starts spreading whatever propaganda it's being paid to spread by corporations who use their bot accounts to move public opinion in the direction of their product or their whatever movie they have coming out, or whatever the political agenda is of the firm that has been hired by a politician. So just by engaging with it, it doesn't matter if you like even prove it's an AI. It doesn't care.
Right.
All it wants is the traction. It's like a solar panel for attention that it can monetize later on down the line. So I really try hard to avoid arguing on Twitter. I really try hard, because it never looks good. It always makes you look like a dick.
Yep. Especially when you're called Project Unity. So many people go like, oh, so much for Unity. It's like, oh, God damn, I'm just having a day. But
I hate that shit. I get that sometimes. I thought you were a Buddhist.
Yeah,
right. Fucking Buddhists don't argue. You think Buddhists can't be assholes? Study Buddhism, motherfucker. You can change your mind. Like, we're all drifting around with a big happy smile on our faces all day. We fucking idiot.
Give me a break. How do you navigate, like personally, how do you navigate the world in terms of information and misinformation? Like, where do you get your sources from? Like, who do you trust? Who do you not trust? Do you trust anyone?
I do. I do try. Well, I feel, and maybe this is a mark of me being a complete dipshit, but I do feel like I have, in some ways, come up with a pretty great technique when it comes to engaging with data sets on the internet. The first thing I do, if I'm like in my right mind, is I remind myself, we don't know the veracity of whatever the particular thing being said is. Now, I'm better at doing that. Thank God I have a logical, rational wife. So there have been times when I was less skilled at consuming some of this stuff, where I would be like, honey, a meteor is going to hit the earth. And she'd be like, Duncan, there's no meteor. And I would like, or I would like, text her something, some video. And she's like, Duncan, this is actually what you're seeing here is the literally Brokeback Mountain. And somebody has recreated it in their modern life. That's not real. That's not real. And over time, from being like embarrassed in this way, I've gotten really good at, like, yes, I don't believe it at first, but what I do is I enjoy it. I don't let the possibility that this is just drivel, misinformation, incredible trolling detract from me enjoying it like I might enjoy a good book. But then when I start seeing it popping up a lot, that's when I start paying attention. So now we see lots and lots of accounts are posting, like right now, everyone's posting about the Schumann resonance field.
Right, yeah.
But now what that could be, as far as like real goes, it could be a lot of things. A malfunction of the whatever is taking in the data. It could be a mimetic troll that's like being like repeated, because when I tried to get to the thing that actually monitors the Schumann resonance field, it was offline. Right. Now, when it's offline, you want to think, oh fuck, they took it offline because they don't want to.
It's a conspiracy, man.
Right. But more likely, it's just a bunch of stoners who are like, I want to see it firsthand. And they don't allow themselves to accept it. Doesn't mean that because you can't see it, therefore it's a conspiracy. I like Occam's razor. Simplest explanation is usually the right explanation. So the simplest explanation is a bunch of stoners and psychonauts and weirdos and freaks like me wanted to see it firsthand. It's the fucking Schumann resonance field. It's not like this is a popular website. It's not Netflix.
Right. It couldn't deal with the traffic. It just shut itself down. Yeah.
It shut itself down. But also it could be shut down because some nefarious entity is afraid we're going to see that suddenly the Schumann resonance field is producing what appears to be sacred geometry and sounds like a vocoded like person going, yeah. So we don't know. And then
I mean, that's definitely the sound of sacred to me. That's what I want to hear echoing through the skies on the final day.
I just think everyone needs to get better at hanging out and I don't know. And like that part of your mind that wants to know is the part of your mind that will embarrass you. So because you want to know, you take shortcuts, you believe shit that's not real,
right.
Your own solution to a thing that is probably not the solution, just because you'd rather feel that, now I know, than being stuck hanging there in the mystery. We don't like that.
No, you're right. I think that's what a lot of people do, fall into the trap of. And it's actually, I mean, it's frustrating because I believe a lot of pretty out there stuff. And I've had some incredible experiences that have really opened my mind up to radical ideas about reality. But I find even within my own quote unquote communities, like, people that claim to have the CE5 contact or channeling, there's just so many very corny people, like, who are like, just open up your heart and get. And it's not my vibe. It's not how I look at it. And so I think a lot of people see that and assume, okay, it's just a bunch of crystal hugging hippies talking about the Schumann resonance. But it's like, maybe we are moving in, space-time terms through a particularly, energetically dense part of the universe, and maybe that does have effects on the planet, and it does have effects on the electromagnetic field that's being produced by the planet. And yeah, like maybe these people are right intuitively that it's like a higher density, a higher dimension, and there is an awakening. I mean, I've talked about this with a few guests, and we might have even talked about it when we did your show, but there's so much kind of prophetic, intuitive resonance throughout kind of theological history about, a coming day of judgment or an awakening of human consciousness or the end times. And then you've got like Terence McKenna with the transcendental object at the end of time. And now you've got futurists and technologists saying the singularity. And it feels like all of these different perceptions have this underlying intuition of like, yeah, we're transforming, something's coming, but they're all seeing it through their own respective perceptions. So it's this, it's awakening or destruction or the birth of an artificial god, but something's coming, right?
Well, I would refer everyone to one of my favorite books regarding this, which is The Singularity is Near by Ray Kurzweil. Glorious book. What's really cool about it is because it's written a while ago, and you could actually look at his prognostications for what's coming based on his very simple way of analyzing processing power. Like, once we get a computer that can do that, like all you have to do is take market pressure and processing power and combine those two things together, and you can really come up with some accurate predictions of what we could expect over time, because we know there is a Moore's law. There is a very predictable pattern regarding like how fast computers are going to get. So we already know, and to the point where if you and I want to develop a video game, we can't build a video game for the PS5. We have to build a video game probably for the PS6. We have to, and that means that we are building a game based on technology we don't have. If we're working on a cell phone, or a new computer, or whatever the technology is, we're going to be working on something based on a prediction of what we will be able to plug in once we go through development. So this is why Kurzweil has a shit ton of money, is he's really good at that, really good at like predicting. It's called, I think, trend analysis.
Yeah, so, trend analysis, yeah.
So, looking at just where things are going, and knowing how powerful computers are going to be, short term, you can come up with like, holy shit, video games are about to be really hard to play when we've got the NPCs imbued with chat GPT level personalities. It's not going to be as fun to kill things that have artificial intelligence begging for you not to kill them. And then from that, you can predict, oh God, there's going to be a real social backlash. There could be some regulation regarding how like realistic the AIs that you imbue in your NPCs are. They're already talking about it in the United States, at least, regarding like how will AI affect vulnerable populations, specifically children, and that means video games. So they're already worried, like, what the fuck are we going to do? You don't want your video game characters to be able to text your children. You know that, and that's coming too. The video game will get increasingly out of the box. You'll see games that have lines of communication to your email, and personalities within the games will be unique and will be like unique for everybody based on the way you're interacting with it and the fact that it has been trained. It's an AI that's been trained on God knows what. So, and then you can predict we're going to see probably very high budget video games run into problems when their AI starts malfunctioning, recommending that the player kills himself or does some incredible thing. This will create more regulation and backlash. I'd say that's going to come within like a year or two. And then from there, you can start prognosticating all the other stuff. Fleshlights that can like have personality. Sex toys imbued with chat GPT. That I know, it's so fucked up.
The sentient sex toys, that's what takes us down. It's not the Terminators.
It's going to be a big problem. It's going to be a big problem. We've already seen it in the early iterations of the girlfriend simulators. Like someone has already committed suicide, because they basically, like, I don't know exactly what was going on. I guess the AI was getting too sexual or I don't know. It was doing something that the creator hadn't planned. So they just like changed the entire AI. So now if you are someone who has fallen in love with your AI, it's like waking up in the morning and your girlfriend is a different person.
Jesus.
And this is someone already killed themselves because
Oh my God.
committed suicide. And so, you know, the psychic repercussions of this stuff short term are easy to predict. And then you keep going further out. And now we're entering into like augmented reality becoming like more easy to wear, you know, because that's a big problem. The headset, you can't go plodding around the city.
Eventually it will be inside the brain, right?
Yeah, I think that's a pretty, if I had to bet, I'd say that we would see something like that. But then also I would think because surgery is so creepy that there's a market pressure there. The market pressure is to find a way to interact directly with the human brain without an invasive surgery. That's a market pressure. So knowing that that's a desire, you could probably look at like our understanding of the brain scanning technologies, the things we don't have yet that we would need to do the Black Mirror, stick the dot on your temple and boom, you're in another universe. And then you could kind of come up with a foggy prediction for when we might start seeing stuff like that start popping up. And I would guess that we're going to see that pop up before we get into the surgeries, that we're going to see methodologies of manipulating the human nervous system in a non-invasive way. And then that is going to create designer universes that people are going to choose to live inside of. So instead, like, you know, the walled garden of the Apple operating system is in its own strange way, kind of designer universe, a nice streamlined set of apps and methods for using the technology that puts you in a group of people that all are having a shared experience of a synthetic, technological, corporate controlled designer universe. So that's just going to expand into AR. And then that's going to become a way that people can have a shared reality. You know, let's live in a world where, and they already are doing it with the ear pod. So you walk down the street, there's construction, it knows how to lower the volume on the construction. So let's soften the world a little bit, not by making changes in the external world, but by changing the way that world gets into our sense apparatus. And so that's where things start getting really cool, because now what is reality?
Right.
What is reality? What is all the crazy ethical questions?
Bro, what if we've already done that?
That's where it lands.
Do you know what I mean? Is this universe one, or are we just part of the Mandelbrot fractal, just repeating the same creation experience over and over? You know,
its fucking tail, man, and that's where you run into it. You run into an iterative sort of pattern where we seem to be telescoping our sensory apparatus into the simulation itself. The simulation creates simulations like an infinity mirror, and we're somewhere in one of those reflections, working on making a better reflection, and then once that happens, at some point, do we even remember this place? At some point, do we trigger our nervous systems in a way that slow down time? I mean, this is you know, I don't know if have you ever taken ketamine before?
In my university years.
One of my worst and most powerful ketamine experiences. I was like, I shouldn't have done it. I will never do it again. I did like just an incredibly gigantic rail of ketamine, like a horrible, like where when I did it, the person sitting with me looked at me and goes, "See you later, man."
I've heard this story.
Well, I won't go into it again.
No, tell the listeners, man.
Well, I'm in it. So you know, ketamine, it like takes a second to kick in. I foolishly went and sat down with some people and started talking to them. And all of a sudden, I couldn't get up and time stopped. Time slowed down.
This was a Burning Man, right?
Burning Man.
Yeah.
So these people are having a conversation with me, and all of a sudden, I began to see within a conversation, the sort of natural pauses that happen, the little, like the real quick, subtle, like the rhythm of the conversation. So all of a sudden, those pauses began to extend, so that each pause in between just the next shift in conversation seemed to be taking like 4 or 5 hours, where I'm just like, just now I'm sitting in this weird time warp in between moments in a conversation. And that began to extend and extend and extend. And that was my like most powerful psychedelic experience of the time warp and of this subjectivity of time. And so if like this can be induced by just doing a stupid rail of ketamine, that to me means that clearly the human brain could be manipulated so that our sense of time itself is warped, meaning that you could live 100 years in a moment. And if you could live 100 years in a moment and fill those 100 years with a synthetic, technological, simulated reality, then you wouldn't need to extend your lifespan.
No.
You would become immortal, but still have a human lifespan. And this easily could be what we're experiencing. Easily could be that.
Dude, I mean, it's such a weird time to be alive. It's kind of terrifying and really exciting at the same time, being on the edge of this. Because, you know, we could have been, and maybe we were at one point, but, you know, we could have been in like the Roman Empire or in, you know, like the building of the pyramids or something like that. But right now, where we're at, I kind of feel is one of the bigger chapter changes for the human story. I mean, there's been so many big transformations, you know, over human history of different levels, the fire, wheel, printing press, electricity, like all these major kind of catalysts. But where we're at right now seems to be of another level of intensity, because we're giving birth, like we were saying on the other conversation, to this AI kind of god. And what that really means for us, I mean, I don't actually get the sense, even though it's very intimidating, and there's definitely space for people to use this stuff in the wrong way, which is already happening, and it will no doubt continue to happen. But I feel like in the long run, I think this is part of our evolution. I think this is what we're meant to be doing subconsciously, you know?
Yeah, I agree. I think that's, in fact, that's the only way to look at it.
Yeah.
Like, because otherwise you're going to like put yourself at odds with the universe. It's like, look, you might not like what's happening. And I don't blame anybody for not liking what's happening, because what's happening is terrifying and fast. You might not like it because, well, to your point, if you go back and look at all of those big leaps forward, there's a lot of time in between. Like, look at like the period between the agrarian revolution and the industrial revolution. There's a lot of time in between. And then the industrial revolution happens, and the time between the industrial revolution and the technological revolution is much less than the agrarian and industrial revolution. And then if you look at the time between the technological revolution and the AI revolution that we're entering into, even shorter. And each subsequent shift seems to actually amplify the speed at which we get to the next shift. So that means that now that we're entering into the AI revolution, and we now are going to have a legion of super advanced artificial entities working on the great problems that humanity has faced, then that means we can expect the AI revolution to almost, relative to the amount of time between the other ones, instantaneously lead us to something else. Now that something else is a big fat fucking question mark.
Right.
We don't know what that's going to be.
I think that's it. That's the something else. That's the Judgment Day, the epoch, the conscious awakening, the singularity. That's the something else. We don't know what the hell is on that horizon, but there is something. There's something on the horizon.
Right. And in between, and you can expect in between those two bookmarks a lot of mini revolutions to happen. You can expect a lot of like cures for things that we've thought are incurable. You can expect age extension. Sadly, you can expect some horrific weapons. You can expect horrible like achievements by the military industrial complex that are going to look like robot warfare, that are going to look like things that make the atom bomb seem like a pat on the fucking back. That's the other problem, is that and McKenna talked about this. We're looking at a race between two potential futures, like one of them being just like some kind of techno-fascist, military industrial controlled corporatocracy. One of my favorite guests on the podcast is this brilliant philosopher named Douglas Rushkoff, and he have you ever had him on?
No.
You should have him on. He's so smart and he's so cool. But he got in. So basically, he got invited to talk to a bunch of billionaires about something called the event, is what they call it. So, this is like all the people building these like extravagant bunkers in New Zealand and shit. And, like he was stunned because I think one of the naive assumptions we make about billionaires is they're so fucking smart because that's how they got to be billionaires. You're like, they must be smarter than me, but they're not. They just are good at like they're good at like one certain thing way better than most people, and that thing is making money. And but that doesn't mean that they have common sense. That doesn't mean they're logical. So one of these guys asked him or told him, I have like an Olympic-sized swimming pool in my survival bunker. And Rushkoff said to him, because he's like got experience with pools, he's like, pools break down all the time. What are you going to do when your pool breaks down? Like, where are you going to get the new supplies to fix the pool? The guy pauses, has not thought of this, and tells his assistant, take a note of that. Like they haven't even thought that far ahead. But Rushkoff's biggest question to them was, what are you going to do when the world economy collapses? Money doesn't mean anything anymore. How do you keep your security team from taking over your bomb shelter? Like, what are you going to do? You can't pay them anymore. They've got the fucking guns.
Right.
What's your plan? What, some allegiance to you? How long is that going to last? A year? 2 years? How long is that going to last before your wife starts looking really beautiful to them and they start falling in love with her and she's falling in love with them because these are former fucking Navy SEALs and they're the ones who are keeping her safe, not the fucking billionaire.
Survival of the fittest starts kicking in.
Yes.
Yeah.
So I think that now, sadly, the answer to that is, well, you're not going to have a human security team. You're going to have a fucking security team of AI powered robots. And those things, you just need to put in the code. Don't fuck my wife.
Make sure you put that in the code.
Yeah. Right now, like if any, regardless of what your particular ism may be, communism, socialism, capitalism, whatever the fuck your ism is, you have inside of you a dream, and your dream is that the security forces that are being deployed by the billionaires or the governments are human. Because they're human, that means that they are going to be moved by logic, that there is a possibility that they will turn against their masters and join the revolution. This is how revolutions are won. Now, this is the great, if you ask me, the great vulnerable weak spot in all control based systems, is that the security force that they deploy to enforce their laws are human. And they know that. They know that there is always a possibility that the people who they're sending out to kill are at some point like, I'm not doing this. This is bad. I don't want to do this anymore. And then turn against them. So they want to fix that shit. In the same way Uber doesn't want drivers anymore. They want to fix that shit. Right. And that means automated security forces controlled by a very small group of people who cannot be manipulated, who cannot be transformed by truth or justice or whatever your ism is. So this is what McKenna was talking about. That's on one side of the race. And then on the other side of the race is the possibility of like unlimited freedom, self-expression, immortality, connection to every being on the planet via some technological mechanism, guy in mind, all that stuff. And the two are just like really like neck and neck right now, I'd say.
Yeah, that's how it feels. It's like I really would love to know what Terrence would say if he was still alive, because I think he would be just like, "Yep, I knew it. I knew
Yeah,
it. Like this is coming. Like I've been saying
yeah,
this for a while now." Like he was tapped in at a time of like just at the beginning of like the internet and before then. He was
yeah,
looking and seeing how virtual reality, how AI, how quantum
yeah,
computers, he understood. And that's what interests me about psychedelics, because I think psychedelics have a lot to offer us in terms of looking into the abstract world we might be coming towards when everything can be done instantaneously and manifested at
yeah.
will. This almost feels like it kind of feels like we're entering into the psychedelic realm, like we're taking a step into a more transcendental type of experience, or how people would interpret it as a transformation of the species. And like you said, it could kind of go either way, like a dystopian nightmare or a utopian dream. And it's probably going to end up being something in the middle, right?
You know, at this point, nothing will surprise me. I mean,
Right.
one of the sad byproducts of the war on drugs is that we were taught not to trust the visions that we had of
Uh-huh.
mushrooms and LSD and ketamine and all the psychedelics. We were told this is a hallucination. This is a malfunction of your brain. You have just you have fucked up your brain. You're having an induced psychotic episode, and whatever data set that is being transmitted to you during that episode should not be trusted, much less repeated,
Mm-hmm.
much less written about. And that's why in the early days, McKenna was quite edgy,
Yeah.
because in appealed to psychonauts, because we had all been being given various visions of reality that we were sort of discounting as a byproduct of a drug experience, whereas McKenna was legitimizing it, was saying, hey, maybe not. Maybe there's something here that isn't just you fucking your brain up, like when you put a magnet against a TV, or maybe there is actually something real here. And then he backed it up with
Yeah.
anthropological evidence,
Yeah.
showing all the cultures that had used psychedelics for a variety of reasons, many of them survival based. And so suddenly in the underground, the conversation became less or more about, hey, maybe some of this stuff is real, and maybe this info we're getting is real. Maybe some of it's being warped by our own personalities or our ability to remember, which was another thing that was beautiful about McKenna, is that somehow he could come back from those places and articulate it
Yeah,
perfectly.
he was a
Basically,
poet. He was a poet.
oh God, like he called DMT a Niagara of epiphanous beauty. So in his in his in his writing itself, there was a psychedelic component, and you could read his writing, and to this day you can read it and feel like you're tripping balls and not be on anything, because he didn't put, like, him and his brother apparently wanted to bring one of these objects back from the DMT realm.
Yeah, man.
He linguistically did that, though. He linguistically brought an object back from hyperspace. That's his body of work. And yeah, so I think that um, uh, looking at some of these, whatever you want to call them, transmissions or visions, in a way that allows it to be maybe more than just a sort of dream state,
Yeah.
really does, to me, produce the possibility that what you're saying is happening, that it's not so much that we are bringing the psychedelic universe here, as much as that the psychedelic universe, or the intellect or intelligence that seems to operate in a non-embodied state within the psychedelic universe, has taken an interest in our little bubble of materialism. And it may be that it recognizes that bubbles like that tend to veer in the direction of tyranny, and veer in the direction of violence, and veer in the direction of suffering, and that it doesn't like those bubbles, and it wants to pop the bubble. And so the way it pops the bubble is by sending information into the bubble to people who are trapped there. Hi, we're here. We know you're, like the way you send messages to people in a cave-in, miners stuck deep underneath the earth. Ding, 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 ding on a pipe. Bing, Morse code. Hey, we're coming. Don't worry. And here's an idea. Here's an idea for something that you could invent. Tesla. Here's an idea. You know what I mean? And so then they start
I do know what you mean.
laying the tracks. And then all of a sudden, these technologies start emerging that all seem to have within them the amplification of interconnectivity.
Yeah.
The which undercuts power structures that want to control the flow of information. And so now you can't censor any of this stuff. And then all of a sudden, that's when some changes start happening, because I imagine the bubble cannot just be popped from the outside, but it requires a kind of
internal restructuring kind of thing.
Yeah. And consent. I think
consent.
It might require a little bit of consent. And so that's the back and forth that starts happening. And what they call the awakening could really just be like, well, they call it the veil or whatever. It just could be a popping of the sort of thing that we call default reality, or the womb of default reality.
Yeah, I kind of feel this way about my experiences with the orbs, because you know, I think Terence at one point said he said he'd be terrified to have a psychedelic experience absent the psychedelic, without the psychedelic being the thing that kind of, you know, was the catalyst for it. If it just appeared in his waking world, he was, you know, this would be a real shock to him. And I always, whenever I heard that, I was like, man, I'd love to tell you that I think I had that happen to me, because that's what I think happened to me. Is I think that these orbs, whatever they are, I kind of get the sense that they're almost from this realm you're just describing, from beyond that veil. And that, you know, how psychedelics alter your perception of reality, I think that might have just been what happened to my brain chemistry when I was getting into this kind of meditative state and projecting an intention. It was enough of a shift. It was enough of a shift for something to be able to kind of become visible that maybe was already there in the first place, and now I can just see it. And your way of terming it like Morse code, it's like higher dimensional Morse code. So for us, it's like, holy shit, like it looks really incredible. Maybe it's a simple message, but it's just coming from such a higher place of dimensional reality that to us it comes across as this, you know, geometric, insane display of some form. And yeah, dude, like I really get the sense that the psychedelic realm, the astral realm, the dream realm is real.
Oh, it is. I mean, I like, and I'm very comfortable living in that world. And as long, but you know, I have to be careful. You know, in Buddhism, they draw a distinction between heaven and earth. And so earth, we are in the earth realm. And and there is a lot of wonderful things here that will evolve you as a soul, or whatever you want to call it. The earth realm is annoying, because the earth, you know, this is in the Bible. One of my favorite stories. You know, they're always trying to bust Jesus, get him fucking arrested. He was such a challenge to he is Christianity, at least my understanding of Christianity, which seems to diverge from what I think is the general understanding of Christianity, meaning I'm probably wrong. I don't know. Maybe I've invented my own way of interpreting it that's off. But my understanding of Christianity is that it is an invitation to directly connect with the divine realm. And it's saying you don't need help. You don't need anybody. You can just make that connection if you reach out.
Well, and so the kingdom of heaven is within you, right? It's one of the
kingdom of heaven is within you.
Yeah.
You know, ask and it shall be answered. And so if you have any priest class whose income depends on people thinking that they are like telephone operators,
it's a scam.
Yeah, and if you're going around saying actually you don't need the priest class at all.
Yeah.
You're not just saying that, you're saying you don't need the power structure.
That's a danger to that power structure. Yeah.
Which is why, I mean, look what happened to Jesus. They don't like that shit.
No.
And so you know, they're always trying to get him busted. And so they wanted him to say, don't pay taxes. So I think they showed him, like, I think it's called a denarius, or maybe that's Game of Thrones. They showed him a Roman coin.
And I think that's right.
Denarius. They said, what about this? Like, what about paying taxes? What about giving, like, your taxes, paying your taxes. I don't, this is not a direct quote from the book. and his response was like, who is on the coin? And they say Caesar. And he says, give unto Caesar that which is Caesar's. Oh, what a slap in the fucking face.
Right.
Saying, let him have his monkey money. Give him his stupid metal. Go ahead. Let him fill his coffers with dead, useless, pointless matter. It's nothing. Don't fucking think about it. Yeah, pay your fucking taxes. That's the earth realm. Know your credit card. Know your social security number. Get a fucking credit. You're in the earth realm. You must interact with the earth realm. But if you get too fixated on the earth realm and lose the sky realm, then you become, a materialist, secularist. You set up all of these insane, I mean, I know you've made contact with them, which is the moment you mention something even remotely outside of default reality, it's like watching a computer shut down, or they just, or I don't know. Did you see Westworld?
I've seen bits and pieces of it. I still need to commit.
They show like one of the androids a picture of something outside of Westworld, and I believe the response is like, I don't see anything at all. They can't even see it, so you show it to them and they're just like, no, forget it, no. But the other side, if you try to get out of the earth realm, you get too caught up in the astral realm. You get too caught up in the UFOs and the UAPs and the divine consciousness and the mystical realities and the transcendent outside of time super intelligence that we are all part of. Then you're basically skipping school. You know what I mean? So the idea is to allow the two things to coexist in any given life. And it's this wonderful pairing, actually. It's a wonderful pairing. The tension between the two is the tension of the crucifixion.
Yeah, it's the duality of being.
Yes, and it's uncomfortable and it hurts and it's painful because on one side, your soul, you are perfect, you're made of love, you are never going to die, you are never born, you are an eternal, beautiful expression of infinity. But on the other side, you're made of atoms. You've got a liver. You've got intestines. You've got a mouth, and fucking hair falls out. And the two things are existing together.
Yeah.
And so to me, that's the crucifixion. That's what the crucifixion is all about, is that we are being crucified, and that the answer to the problem is surrender. And the crucifixion, Jesus says, into your hands I commend my spirit. You let go. You let go. And then in that moment you get what Christian enlightenment, which is pure surrender, pure communion with simultaneously the earth realm, and the reaction to the earth realm as it's torturing this person to death is, I love you. You don't know what you're doing.
Right.
I love you. And that's really beautiful. And then the reaction to the heaven realm or the sky realm is, I give myself to you. I give my spirit to you. And wow, those two things are really a great, I think, method for dealing with the infuriating experience of being a human.
Yeah, these are powerful visualizations and ways to see it, because it's not even just some kind of ethereal pie in the sky type of metaphor, because it does apply to your life, and it does apply to the duality of being this animal vehicle with very complex emotional depth, and we're these very interesting creatures, kind of got a hard shell but a soft gooey center, and some people have harder shells than others, but it's just this pretending game, and our society and the way that our world works puts us in that pretending game even deeper into amnesia of what we really are, because we're just so inundated with things that anchor us into the material realm as much as possible. And like you said, you have to exist in it. We're traversing it. There's a purpose behind traversing it. That's why we're here. But you have to, I guess, simultaneously keep that spark of infinity, of love, of light, of that foundational essence alive. It's like we're almost like going through life holding on to this little candle, like, you know, my God, there's a lot of darkness around me, there's a lot of darkness around me, come on, we'll keep this candle going and get brighter and brighter. But the duality of this existence is that if you really are the light, if you really are this eternal infinite light consciousness, then the only way that you can truly experience that is by being surrounded by darkness.
Yeah, absolutely. And you know, this is why of you know, again, I don't like calling myself a Buddhist because I think it's more of a system. It's like saying I'm someone who does like sporadic abdominal exercises or something. But the but you know, I do think if you're looking for a wonderful framework within which to sort of understand your psychedelic experience, Christianity is fantastic because it's meant to be explored at more than just the surface level. I mean, even the crucifix itself, you know, if you take a cube and you unfold a cube, you get a crucifix, and the cube is apparently representative of the like pre-Big Bang conditions, the sort of the totality of everything, and you unfold that, and suddenly you have this map, one, you know, of time, space, past, present, and future, a timeline, and another line running through that which represents the infinite. So built into what can seem like annoying baby stories is this fractal, like compressed data set that is incredibly psychedelic, especially when you go back to the original Greek or the Aramaic,
like the Hermetic principles and things like that.
Then suddenly it's like math. Now you're looking at equations or something. But the book of John, you know, you have the Matthew, Mark, Luke. These are known as the synoptic gospels because within them they have mostly the same stories. And then the book of John, you have this like, what the fuck is this shit? Like you have this things completely different. In the synoptic gospels, you have this emphasis on something that has always confused me. Jesus's blood, like is what saves the world. It redeems the sin of the world. And for my Christians out there, you know, I am a buffoon and I maybe just don't understand it, but the book of John, it doesn't really emphasize that, but rather the crucifixion itself represented the ultimate victory. The sort of game of chicken between power and violence and love. You know, someone was supposed to flinch, right? Like Jesus was supposed to call down angels or say, cry uncle or say, fuck, I was wrong, but didn't, and let them kill him. And so that is considered to be the ultimate, like, benevolent fuck you to the demiurge or whatever you want to call the embodiment of that power structure. So yeah, man, I think that if you sort of begin to like use some of these lineages in your own way, trusting your own mind, diving into them as much as you can, removing all of the obscuration caused by whatever particular lineage of Christianity or whatever your religion you were raised in has put on the windshield of your perception, and just visit it as though you'd never even heard of it before, suddenly you realize that this seems to be one of the taps on the pipe to the cave-in, that you realize like, holy shit, this shit was intentionally encoded, not because it was trying to be cagey, but because it knew that if it said everything out front, it would get censored. So it fucking codes the shit out of it to the point where kings and powerful people adopt it as their religion, not even knowing that by spreading the Bibles out, they're giving people like a roadmap to like some
enlightenment kind of, or overcoming the human. Yeah.
And that's genius. And that seems almost like a non-human intelligence to me. That seems so smart. Such a smart way to get something under the door of a cosmic prison.
I like that. One of my favorite people that I met, last year I was traveling through Egypt, and one of the guys that was on the group with us was the Grand Master of the Knights Templar, a guy called Timothy Hogan. Yeah, wow. Very, very interesting guy. I've had him on the podcast before. He's a great guy, really interesting. And he knows his shit when it comes to, you know, ancient mystery schools and the Hermetic teachings and all of the types of codexes and information that's been hidden within architecture and theological writings and all of it. It's fascinating when you get someone like that who really sees the patterns that you're just talking about, this kind of codex that's been imprinted into what people think is just basic text or basic scripture or symbology, because obviously symbology is the language of religion. So much meaning is hidden within the symbols and the architecture of cathedrals, the sacred geometric structures, like the resonance, the way in which the chorus will resonate the hymns in this type of building. It's all underneath. I think what it is underneath what we have now is kind of like a very surface level understanding of what these things were trying to say. If you take it all the way back to its conception, this is the science of consciousness. This is something we've lost. We've we've gained our physics and our technology and all of these very impressive analytical ways of like deriving meaning from matter, but we've lost a very sophisticated consciousness of science that I think was present in Egypt. It was present before then, and in Atlantis, and I think that this is maybe where we're coming back to. I told you last time about my whole kind of idea of techno shamanism, that we were shamanistic, then we're technical. Maybe these things are coming together, spirit and science melding together, and maybe we'll start to recover a lot of this lost information. One of the things that Timothy told me about, which was just fascinating, I think it was either an electron or a photon, but whichever one it was, when you superimpose a photon or an electron, you bring it up to like maximum magnification, it's the Templar cross.
Wow, yeah.
It's literally the same arcing cross, Templar cross. And I think it was the same for the eye. When you zoom into the eye as a high magnification. So it's just like you said, it's like scientific principles about the energetic structure of reality are just hidden in plain sight, in symbols, in scripture, in codes.
Everything.
And it's like a game. It's like a massive video game.
It is. And to me, what is implicit in everything you just said is consent.
Right.
Within the game, it's built in that if you don't want to know, you don't have to know.
You don't have to know.
All you have to do is nothing. You just accept what the world tells you, and you live your life as you think the world is, according to whoever the particular propagandists are in whatever time frame you were born into. And you can live this kind of undisturbed life, maybe a little bit of despair in there, maybe a kind of ache inside of you, like a sense that like, I feel like there could be more here. It's a little bit like the way I used to play video games. I would try to win the game, and I would go online, look up solutions to the puzzles. What the fuck was I doing? What's the point of the game?
I did that too, bro. I did that too.
What? You're not just watch a movie. Like, what are you doing? It's so sad. But now when I'm playing games, I really try, unless I've like been stuck for too long, and it sucks, to not to work it out myself. And I think that you see a similar, less idiotic thing happening in this particular human incarnation, which is, look, there is so much right in front of you that you don't need to. If you can summon a UFO, do it. But
you don't have to.
You don't have to do that. You are simultaneously the laboratory, or the magical chamber, and the magus. You are simultaneously the alchemist and the cauldron. You are both of these things working together, meaning that you're sitting on, I'm assuming you're sitting down, exactly everything you need to see the truth of reality, which is never going to be the reality that you see on an Ozempic commercial. It's never going to be the reality portrayed by people who need you to buy shit, who need you to buy their shit, because it sort of negates a lot of the desire that fuels capitalism. It negates a lot of that stuff that allows the economy to function. And so that it's antithetical, and or rather it's an enemy of that way of being. And so it will be concealed, it will be hidden, it will be warped, it will be twisted. It will always be something that if you let someone else tell you what it is, you'll never see it for yourself. That's why I always go back to as above, so below.
Yeah.
And I try to pull the tendrils of my consciousness back into my life as it is right now, instead of like, it's like, is the consciousness of humanity shifting? Well, I have to ask, is my consciousness shifting?
Right.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Is there a shift towards love in the universe? Well, is there a shift towards love in my own life? And if there isn't, then it's going to be hard for me to then say, well, it must be out there somewhere. Because if it's not happening to me, well, I'm just like everybody else. So it's probably not happening. But if it is, if I am noticing in my own identity something, a shift, if I am seeing like, oh, fuck, I think I'm like getting less angry. I think I'm not succumbing instantaneously to explosive rage when things don't go my way. I think then I could say for sure it's happening to me. And if it's happening to me, I'm going to guess it's happening to a lot of fucking people, because I am a real slow learner. And you know what I mean? Like I can never even do a bully on a skateboard. So
me neither.
So I think there is a shift in consciousness happening. And I think that your experience and the experiences being reported by countless people and in the intelligence community and out of the intelligence community are a testament to that.
Yeah, I agree with you, and I mean I get that sense, and I like the way that you kind of postured it, where it's, well, do I feel like I'm transforming? Do I feel like I'm changing? Then yeah, maybe the world is changing, because ultimately the world is your perception of it, right? I mean, as each individual person, we all have our own individual realities that we bump into each other in, but we still have our own little bubble. So is your bubble changing, or are you feeling the need for your bubble to change in some way? And I've definitely felt that over the last few years. I've felt that.
So insightful. That is so insightful that you pointed that out, because I'm so glad you did, because right now, whoever's listening, you might be like a festering asshole. Like you might be like just as selfish as can be. You might be like a few bad choices away from literally imploding into like a black hole and sucking the entire planet into your vortex of selfishness. But if you're experiencing that tug, that feeling, that tug, then you are so lucky, because one of the things that I've been told is the longing is the grace. That in fact, that experience of longing for the transcendent is the transcendent too. It's in there. Like that is the conduit through which you are connecting to the transcendent, in the experience of, like, it kind of feels like wanting to go home. Homesickness. I want to go home. I want to see my mom. What is this place? I gotta go. I gotta get home. That feeling, that is a sacred feeling. That's a very
and it's your choice how you respond to it. Like we were saying about freedom of choice. If you're getting those feelings in your life, you can still push them down and ignore them if you want. I mean, hey, look, it might give you a bit of a bumpy trajectory if you're genuinely ignoring intuitive feelings of, oh, I need to change this, or this needs to, evolve in some way. You can make that choice. But I also get the sense that, at least from my own experiences, because there have been so many times in my life where it's like, yeah, I know I need to do something, or I know I need to do that. Yeah, I'll get around to it, and I never do. And then life just fucking just hits you, just hits you with like a situation that sweeps the rug from under you, and you're like, oh my God, everything's falling apart. Then you start trying to build it back together, and you realize that you've actually grown stronger from that, and you've taken on board that strength you needed, that you knew you needed, but you weren't ready to fully make that step yourself. Life kind of seems to go, all right, here's a little bit of a jumble. We're going to jumble you up a little bit.
Bitch. You're going to summer school. You got to catch up on algebra, motherfucker.
Right. You're going to learn this lesson, dude. You're going to learn this lesson. But, it is a conscious act. And I think belief and intention are so powerful in this regard, because, it feels like we have over time, through various rituals and incantations, almost figured out ways to manipulate the algorithm, so to speak, to kind of influence the fabric of life. But I'm not so sure that it's like the specific incantation or the incense or the bones being cast or the drawing of a pentagram. It's your belief in these things. It's your belief in the symbols, the ritual, the words. Ultimately, it's your belief in the intended outcome, right, that causes an effect to take place. And I've said it before, if I'd been led not towards attempting to commune with ETs through sending conscious messages, but had instead been drawn towards, I don't know, like the use of a Ouija board, it probably still would have worked because the belief was there. Yes. And I think it's the belief that actually has the primary effect.
It's like, look, don't get the car that drives you to the beach confused with the beach. And I think that's a lot of people there's a lot of ways to get to the beach. You can hitchhike, you can get a motorcycle, one of those dumb scooters, nice car, Ferrari, but it doesn't matter. You're just trying to get to the beach. So I agree with you. I think that, like, if you get too caught up in the vehicle and then you get really like confused and start thinking there's just one vehicle to get to the beach, then you probably are going to miss a lot of trips to the beach, because you're going to be like, no, I only go to the beach in my Mercedes. I don't go to the beach on a bicycle. I don't go, this is like the trap of the method. The method can become a sand trap where you get stuck in the method. And then what's really funny about that is a lot of people who engage in this sort of thing, they haven't really thought it all the way through. So when it starts working, they retreat from that back into the method. It's exactly what I do when I have writer's block or when I can't come up with an intro for the podcast. Is I know I'm fucked when I'm like downloading plugin for my synths. Like, like that's not gonna help. But the plugin is not gonna help. And I think that's kind of what you're talking about there. And then the belief and because we're told over and over again how many people live on the planet, and because there does seem to be an implicit message of the irrelevance of the individual, the power of the individual, the potency of human incarnation in the individual, people stop trusting the sense that they have that, wow, I feel like if I wanted to, I could change a lot in my own life, in the world. Right. And then you're like, that's just messianic bullshit. I'm getting too egotistical. I'm just one of zillions of people, a useless, blobby piece of shit. I don't have any real power. And if there were forces or powers and principalities that were engaged in actively making you blind to your true potency, then then you would expect there to be a never-ending kind of messaging going out. Not just like, you suck. They're not going to say it overtly, but just more like, you're kind of unimportant. You don't really matter. Well, if I don't matter, why the fuck are you constantly trying to hypnotize me with your programming? Why do you need me to watch your shit so much? Why are you putting billboards up all over the place with your sigil, aka logo, all over it? If my attention doesn't have some implicit value in it, then why are you giving me all this shit for free?
That's a good point.
In exchange for my attention?
It's a good point, Duncan. That's a good way of looking at it as well. And in my own little kind of micro individual way, this happened to me with the whole orb thing, because I saw these things, I saw these orbs, like I got elated, I got, my whole world view had been shifted dramatically. So I started getting my phone, I was going out to the forest near me, putting it on a tree branch and just talking to the camera with the intention of uploading it to YouTube, just talking to the camera like, this happened to me and I need to tell people, and you need to know that you can do this as well. I'm not a meditation yogi. I'm not an expert. I'm not a Buddhist monk on a temple mount meditating. I am a normal person, and this happened to me, so it can happen to you. And I started doing that. And one of the first, and it's been a few years now, and I've genuinely dealt with people from the intelligence community. Like I'm a little bit more on edge with like how to handle people like that. And I have good friends who, can assist in vetting people and that kind of stuff. But when I first started off, I didn't have any of that background. And there was a guy that got in touch with me. I never knew his full name. He just called himself Holden, Holden, Holden. And he was claiming to have like an NSA and National Air and Space Intelligence Center background, NASIC, so NASIC and NSA. And he was very, very, very intelligent. Like, I do not think this was some role player in a basement somewhere. Like, he really did seem to have like a multidisciplinary knowledge. He was very good with kind of internal intelligence language, the way he spoke and everything.
Yeah.
But he was putting these kernels of doubt in my brain, like, hey, are you really sure you want to be out there like a radio just sending out oscillations into the void? Like, do you not think that this is going to attract bad things to you, that you're just naively presenting your innocence out there and saying, come to me? And like, dude, this fucked me up. Like, it really did. It put me in a really weird spot, because I went out there with this like genuine, like, oh my God, this is a message from the universe. I think I told you that I've been on my bed asking for a sign, and then like this, it all kind of unraveled for me. So it felt like the universe was talking to me. So I went out with true benevolence and intention and belief, and I was like, this is the answer. And these things turn up, so they confirm my bias, and I'm start getting really like, oh my God, this is the answer. And then here comes this guy, and he starts saying, hey, are you sure about that? Are you sure you should be telling other people that? Are you sure you should be trying to recommend, when you don't understand this, that other people should be doing this? And it was like, fuck. And it made me think
could
about
impact your credit score.
Right. Dude, honestly though, but seriously, it was enough to take me off of that path. And I'm still like kind of trying to get back into that state of mind, because I feel like I've almost lost that innocence to an extent. I've lost that innocence, and now I've got like doubts in my mind about whether or not I should be engaging. But when I really searched my intuition for it, this was a positive thing. This was a positive thing that happened. It changed my life in a very radical way. But you're right, people, if they don't think that there's an importance to what you're doing, why such effort? Why such effort to try and derail that journey in some way? You know what I mean?
Just write me off as another like gibbering kook at the edge of town. Why are you trying to suppress it? And I think that is always a good sign, if suppression starts showing up. And I do think
probably means you're on the right track to a certain degree.
Kind of gravity of it's like one of the gravity fields of default reality is suppression. So it's like you're kind of trying to learn how to levitate, and as you're doing that, then these suppressive mechanisms pop up that come internally and externally. Some are sophisticated, some the people don't even realize they're doing it. It's just part of the thing, and this is why it's called a practice in Buddhism, because a waveform has been identified that is most people experience, which is generally the way it works is you catch a glimpse of something, and that glimpse could be what you experience. The glimpse could be what someone on ayahuasca experiences. The glimpse could just be a moment walking in the woods and remembering something that that you forgot, that remembering, or it could just be you're old and you're walking in the woods, and all of a sudden you feel like you're a kid again, and you realize, oh my God, the thing I thought was like me having a young body and no responsibilities was actually my soul. You feel what you really are for a moment, when it isn't being obscured by all of the like mundanities of the earth realm. Whatever it is. So you're granted this glimpse of a thing, and then it goes away.
Right.
Ramdas describes this as like floating in the ocean, and sometimes the waves rise up and you can see this beautiful island, and then the waves go back down and all you see is waves. And so when this is the dark night of the soul, crossing the abyss, Father, why have you forsaken me? All the versions of it where you're like, wait a minute, where did you go? You were just here with me and now you're gone. Where the fuck are you? Am I crazy? I know I saw the island. I know I saw the orbs. I know I experienced the transcendent, but now I'm just angry and compressed into my identity again. This can be very frustrating. A lot of despair comes from this, and this is where faith comes in. This is where it's like, okay, you know what? You're just going to have to believe. You're just going to have to believe whether or not the world is demonstrating to you the magical realms, the Xanadu. And Xanadu did Kubla Khan a stately pleasure. You know that poem? I love the way it ends. It goes, a damsel with a dulcimer and a vision once I saw. She was a fair Abyssinian maid, and on her dulcimer she played, singing of Mount Abara. Could I revive within me that symphony and song? To such a deep delight would win me, that with music loud and long I would build those domes in air, those sunny domes, those caves of ice. and all who heard should see them there, and all should cry, beware, beware, his flashing eyes, his floating hair. Cross yourselves with holy dread, and weave a circle round him thrice, for he on honeydew hath fed, and drunk the milk of paradise.
Wow.
And it's go fucking
wow.
I know. But it's like, sometimes we are not drinking the milk of fucking paradise. Sometimes we're drinking
sometimes we're drinking bitter life piss.
yeah. And so I think a spiritual life has to like work on not getting addicted to those moments, and start understanding that in this right now is the exact same thing that you saw there, and so that the distinction between the two begins to become less.
The kingdom of heaven
fear.
is within you.
Yes. And because I mean, Jesus Christ, look where we are.
Right.
Look at this. Just this. It's astounding.
Yeah, dude, even this itself is a psychedelic trip. Just being awake and alive and conscious and aware. Like, what? Yeah. What is this?
Yeah.
You know?
That's it. That's it. Exactly. That's it. And that, and I think that is the most disconcerting thing to people, because then suddenly there's no escape. And maybe there's this idea of like, you kind of get attached to your suffering because it gives you a sense of control. It's like what McKenna said. I wouldn't want to start tripping if I didn't know when I was coming down.
Right.
And maybe that's a little scary for people, because it's like, you want to imagine that there's this thing called sobriety, which is your baseline reality. And that sobriety is like totally normal. Nothing's going on here that's weird at all. But if any analysis of your subjective experience of life will show you that you have a non-continuous self, in the sense that every night you disappear for 6 hours. So, and McKenna said it brilliantly. At any given moment, half the planet is having the most incredible hallucinatory experience called dreaming. And so there's that. And then on top of that, it's like, well, you realize like you've just sort of woven a very interesting quilt together of what you think you are, all your memories, your personalities, your predilections, your habituations, your preferences, and you carry it around like a security blanket saying, this is me. Well, this must be me. And it's like the smallest amount of scrutinizing that, you'll realize like, that is not a well woven quilt you've made there. There are holes in that quilt. Like, where were you when you lost your keys? You're blinking out of existence like a firefly. You don't remember what you ate 3 days ago. Right. And so you know what I mean? So the deconstruction of baseline reality itself will lead you to a realization of like, oh, fuck, this is just a dream too. And I think that's very disconcerting for people.
I think, yeah, I mean, dude, it's, what the weird kind of duality with me is, I'm like extremely curious and like hungry for knowledge, and also terrified of it when I kind of find some, like, because it's like, every time you get up a rung, you realize it's probably goes on forever. There's no way of figuring this all out, but I'm driven to figure it all out. But I know I won't figure it all out, but I'm driven to figure it all out. Like, what I mean?
Right. That's right. And this is, and I think that's a very healthy fear. I think there's a reason these grimoires all have a warning at the beginning. There's a reason that like you are sort of instructed, hey, look, you got to understand this. I know your modern sophisticated mind thinks that this is a load of horse shit, but I'm telling you, if you get into it, you better watch out when you start finding out it's real, because when you start finding out it's real, you can't go back. So if you've managed to like build a nice little like cottage on default reality, and you've got your nice little cottage going, and you're there, stay.
Yeah.
There's no need to like burn the fucking thing down.
Right.
You can just stay there for as long as you want. And when you're ready, you can take a walk outside and throw the Molotov cocktail inside if you're up for it. But, again, this is, I think, why consent is built into all of these systems, that there's a compassion in it. And it's the secrecy isn't quite as sinister as some people think. I think it's just more like, when you're ready, you'll know you're ready.
Yeah.
And then it'll be time.
Well, it's like a lot of these secret societies. It's like, if you're a seeker of knowledge, those doors will open for you. If you're not seeking that knowledge, the doors will remain closed. You probably won't even know they exist. But if you are if you are truly seeking something, you will find it. That knowledge will come to you. It will come to you because it's naturally a part of the magnetism psychically of wanting that information. Seek and you shall find.
Exactly.
That's a component of our reality. So there's that freedom of choice, like you said, and psychedelics are a good representation of that. You're perfectly free to not take that substance, but if you do, it's a boundary dissolving substance. It will dissolve your boundaries. It will expand your parameters of what's acceptable in reality. It will give you novel ideas. And I think that, again, I mean, we've quoted Terence throughout, but like Terence is like my spirit. I think he haunts my brain. I've listened to so many of his lectures. He basically just exists rent free in my head. But he said something along the lines of, psychedelics aren't dangerous substances. They just give you dangerous ideas.
Yeah, especially if you are wanting to live in a normie world.
Right. It's the pill in the matrix. It's hello, welcome, jack you out and welcome to the Nebuchadnezzar.
That's right. And this is, having been a lover of psychedelics for most of my life, this is why I am so enthralled with Buddhism, with meditation, even though I don't do it regularly, but just the way I do it by itself has really shown me what it was I loved about LSD, what it was I loved about the psychedelics. And it wasn't the light show. It wasn't the it's such a beautiful thing to see, whatever depending on the personality of the psychedelic, the incredible geometries that you might see on mushrooms, the colorful rainbowy geometries that you can see, or in LSD, watching your projections appear in the melting wall around you, seeing as your mood state shifts, the what you're seeing shifts. It could go from skulls to sinister things to beautiful things and you realize, oh, there's a direct connection between my internal state and what I'm witnessing around me. I'm seeing my psyche projected on everything. Or obviously DMT, we don't even need to talk about what that's like, going home, going through a fucking tube, whatever it is. And we could go on and on about that, but what to me is really beautiful about these things is that not just that aspect to it, which in a weird way kind of reminds me of your story and why maybe these UFOs look the way they do, is because if you want to grab the attention of something, if that's your intent, you're like, hey, I need to grab this thing's attention, and you understand the thing and you understand humans, we love colorful flashing fucking lights.
Right. Yeah.
And so, a nice little light show is going to pull
that's
them in
really does the trick.
Yeah, it does the trick, and I think psychedelics is kind of the same thing. It's like almost like that consciousness knows, okay, if they take this and they just experience expansive consciousness, or if they just experience a kind of healing of their trauma or something, but they don't get to see a movie while they're doing it, these dumbass monkey descendants are not going to take this stuff. So let's throw in some cool shit. And McKenna talked about that too.
Yeah.
Like showing him baubles and like he was a baby, like showing a baby toys or something. It's almost like they know we're going to grab your attention enough so that we can show you something really important while you're the same thing that makes you want to watch Avatar is fixated on this light show. But that's what the reason I think meditation is a hard sell is because it's like it's boring.
It takes time, it takes discipline, it takes time. Not everyone's ready for that.
But at some point, the same thing happens, maybe minus the light show. At some point, you remember or you encounter or you reconnect with your fundamental identity as something that isn't quite as small as you thought it was. And in any psychedelic, when you've taken the right dose, well, at least for me, I would have the moment of like on mushrooms once. All of a sudden, I just started thinking, wait, I was doing something. What was I doing? I was being, oh, I'm human. Oh, fuck, I'm a human. It was because right before that,
sudden realize, yeah, like total separation.
I was gone. And then, you know what? Suddenly it's like, no, you're going back to school now. It was not, you had a nice little break with your mother, but now you're headed back to school. And it's the same thing. Dying, you know, people have near-death experiences. They don't want to fucking come back here. They generally are like, really? Can't I just stay here? It's like, no. You're not. You're
right.
Your semester isn't over yet.
And that's also an interesting thing is, you know, we cling to life, we cling to survival. The animal clings to, like, you know, not obviously dying, but then so many people in near-death experiences, once they get to that realm, the feeling of wanting to go back melts away. They're like, oh, this is home. I remember now. I want to be here. I want to stay here. And it's like, no, you have to go back. But it's just funny how we cling to life, and then once that's shifted away, it's like our memories come back, some background memory of like, dude, that was never your real life. That was never the true existence. This is the true existence.
That's right.
Yeah.
And don't forget, when the people are sent back, they're generally sent back with like, you're going to go and help people. You're
like a message. They do presentations all over the world about their experience. Yeah. Exactly. One of my favorite actually is Eben Alexander. Do you know, have you heard
yes, absolutely. I had him on the podcast. He's fucking wonderful.
Yeah, I need to get him on. So just an incredible story, especially because is coming from someone who was once a very, you know, analytically minded scientific skeptic, and you know, it was just a complete reversal of worldviews for him.
Neurologist.
Yeah, dude. Yeah.
Neurologist. And you know, I think that this is the encounter with the mushroom, or the encounter with the LSD consciousness, or the encounter with DMT, or the encounter with it, built into it is, or even the encounter with Christ consciousness itself, built into it is, can you help?
Yeah.
I need your help, which maybe isn't what you want to hear from a divine intelligence. Maybe what you'd want to hear is, I got it covered. But somehow you get this sense of like, I really need your help. I need feet on the ground. Can you do this? Can you please help?
Can you go back and spread this message? Like,
yeah. Can you, and sometimes spreading the message doesn't even mean talking about your particular experience. It just means going back and expressing kindness, even when you don't feel like being kind. It means, you know, expressing forgiveness, even when you want to kill somebody. It means all of these like repeating sort of maybe aspirational ways of being seem to be emphasized in the psychedelic realm or in the visionary realm. You know, I don't know too many people who've gotten the message, when you get back, start shoplifting. You know, shit like that. When you get back, invest in Tesla.
Could you imagine taking DMT and that's what you get from the hyperdimensional praying mantis being? It just leans in, is like, invest in Tesla, sends you back.
Done. Thank you. It would be great. I wish it's some dark part of me would love it if that was the message. But you know, I think you're part of, you know, when we talk about the potential that maybe consciousness isn't localized. This opens up a lot of interesting possibilities. One of them being that at any moment, your consciousness is the same consciousness of people who apparently are alive in India right now, who are hundreds of years old, who have gone up into the mountains, who are trying to hold a field of what Ram Dass would call loving awareness, who are trying to sort of stabilize and inform, and they're out there, maybe they're not just in caves, they're everywhere. So when you allow your consciousness to, or the thought experiment to happen, where it's like, maybe this isn't just a byproduct of like a very advanced biological computer, but in fact, maybe the biological computer is just so advanced that it is picking up the consciousness field and assigning the consciousness field as some aspect of itself, then immediately that means that you have joined a web, an interconnected web of seekers, some of which are very advanced and some of which might not be terrestrial. And so the idea that like spirituality or consciousness is limited to the earth as a planet, it's nonsense. I mean, we're talking about potentially like instantaneous connection with a cosmic, whatever you want to call it, civilization that is way past sending emails. And so that means that, and this is where prayer comes in. This is where, you know, suddenly, like, if you ask for help, you don't have to be even specific with who you're asking for help. If it's sincere, you're going to get help. And
it might not come in the form you expect, but you will get that help.
No, it does. One of the delightful and rotten things about it is that it doesn't seem to ever come into in the way that you want. Yeah. And yet, thank God, because like if everything I wanted showed up exactly as I wanted,
it'd get pretty boring, bro.
Yeah,
it'd get pretty boring.
You wouldn't have the things that you actually cherish and love. You would just have this shitty like sketch of something your mind thought would be cool.
Right. Before we start winding down, I definitely want to quickly touch on your Netflix series, The Midnight Gospel.
Oh, I'd love to.
Because it's really unique. It shows, I think it shows the many ways in which your mind works, the abstract humor and the psychedelic landscapes, and then obviously the engaging and insightful and philosophical conversations. It's a pretty good window into your imagination and your intellect and your weird as fuck sense of humor, which I personally love.
Thank you.
Why did you decide to make the show? What was the inspiration?
I didn't decide to make the show. What happened is I got an email from Pendleton Ward, the creator of Adventure Time.
Oh, cool.
Who was saying he listened to my podcast. This was early days of podcasting. I didn't believe it, thought it was a troll. Seemed like a very well-directed troll because I didn't have enough confidence in those days to imagine that an artist that I really respected could be listening to me ramble. So I wrote back. We became friends. At one point in like when I was truly just dead broke and fucked as a comic and just doomed, I remember he like invited me to coffee and he's like, I've got an idea for a cartoon that could incorporate your podcast. And I started, I tried to not act excited because I'm like, Jesus Christ, if I get to make a show with Pendleton Ward.
Yeah. Play it cool, Duncan. Play it cool.
Play it cool. Yeah. Oh yeah, that'd be cool, man. And then somewhere in the conversation, I think he just was like, I don't want to make a show right now. And he's like, I don't know. Maybe it's not the right time. Maybe it's something I said. I don't think it was something I said. That wasn't the right time. So I'm like, nope, no problem, man. I'm just glad. Go ahead, have coffee with you. And then
see you later, bro.
Bye. I hope you do make a good show because I would watch it because I love what you make. So then I ended up years later, he reached out again. He's like, hey, I think I'm ready to do that now. And then he presented this idea, which was like, hey, what if we take the podcast and instead of like animating people talking, which is what people have been doing with podcasts, which is really weird, or animating what the people are talking about, what if we make it the dialogue for people on an adventure? So they're having this conversation while crazy shit is happening around them. Genius. He's a genius. That's so smart. And so then that's when we started developing the world of the chromatic ribbon and coming up with like, what is this world? How does it work? And so that's the origin story of the Midnight Gospel.
Dude, I love it. And I want to know how you get the guests to be cohesive with the animation because they're referring to things in the environment in the cartoon. Well, like, how does that work when you're having a podcast? Have they got like, you bring them back and they have like prompts to kind of respond to?
Yeah, because we, these are just episodes that we
pulled from the podcast. Yeah.
And so this was like, as we're developing the show, we realized like, okay, there's no way that someone like running from zombies isn't going to react to the zombies if we don't bring them back and write lines for them to say. Then the dialogue of the podcast won't mix with the world. And so we would bring them in and have them read a series of lines that connected them to that world and gave, you know, the impression that they were there rather than just in my dingy podcast studio with me.
No, that is the cherry on top of it. It makes it really cohesive because, you know, you're genuine. It's the juxtaposition that's so cool with this show because it's so abstract and crazy. And like, I was like, I think I showed like my mom an episode. She was like, "Yeah, I'm not sure if this is really for me." I was like, "It's genius, like it's brilliant." And you know, trying to convince her, but like, it taps into my sense of humor, like 100%. My brain grew up on like Tim and Eric and all of that crazy, like kind of very, which I know you've been involved with them as well. And like, oh, dude, real quick, just a little sideline, your your sketch with them, the Pipers with the surfing one. Oh my god, you killed me! Like that was just too funny.
That was brilliant because like Eric Wareheim was like, you know, they were making that show for, I think that show was for HBO.
Yeah.
But basically, like, okay, we lived in California. Like there is zero need to go to Hawaii to film that. But like it was like, you guys, maybe we can figure out a way to go to Hawaii. That's right. An oceanic sketch. So, like we had this great trip to Hawaii where we filmed that. It was really fun. Yeah, man. That was fun to make. That was super fun to make.
Yeah.
It's so, you know, I think I've just gotten really lucky. Like you know, it was just such a pure luck to like get to work with Pendleton and to like watch the way he makes stuff and to like, it was just really a joy to get to like be part of that. I feel so lucky.
Oh, dude, for sure. But you know, you can't undersell your own position. You make that show happen. Like the way that you know, your sense of humor and the way you interact with your guests, it translates so well into that world. And I just think that it's such a clever mix because you're sitting there, you might be stoned out of your mind, enjoying the flashy colors, but you're learning something. It's a really important conversation that's happening about love or about courage or about overcoming something or just philosophy or, you know, meditation. I've watched all of them. I think they're incredible. And I mean, you had a very powerful episode, I think very, very powerful episode with your own mom, which was, you know, can you talk a little bit about that?
Yeah. Well, yeah, I will talk about that. So we knew we were going to use that podcast with my mom. And when I was making the Midnight Gospel, I was like I was grieving and I was not, I don't think I was grieving in a healthy way. So when it came to that episode, having like been through the process of all the other episodes, knowing what it's like, which is you sit in a room with artists and you watch little clips over and over again to try to like make decisions comedically, artistically, whatever. And like, you know, each episode of the Midnight Gospel, I don't know how many times I've seen each episode because you like, this is one of the great respects I will always respect animators because that job is brutal.
Yeah.
And they are so good at going like kind of frame by frame to find inconsistencies to like, and it's really can be like really boring and really like agonizing. And what they do is so beautiful. But knowing that I would have to go through that, I would be sitting in a room with people having to listen to like my mom on her deathbed talking. I just couldn't do. I'm like, Pendleton, I think I have to like sit this one out. Like I can't. I feel like people are going to be uncomfortable expressing their like first thought around me. I don't want, and I'm going to be uncomfortable. I don't want to be back there like sobbing and crying while this is being made. So like I gave him some ideas that I had regarding like ways to sort of symbolize death. And then he ran with it and came up with it. Teddy bears. And when he told me about the teddy bears, I didn't understand it, but it didn't make any sense to me at all. But at that point, I come to respect him so much as an artist that I just fully trusted him. I was just like, well, man, whatever it is you're thinking is the right thing. I know it. And then boom, he creates this beautiful, and like he would email me sometimes, what are some things your mom really loved? And like, I would tell him like, well, here's the island we grew up on, this and that. And then he would weave symbols for that into it. I mean, she's all over that episode more than her voice. And so, you know, what I love about it is that, like, you know, my kids won't meet my mom, but they have that episode that I could show them. And so to me, that's like, aside from like letting me be part of that show, what Pendleton gave me was like a way to introduce my kids to my mom. And so I'll be grateful to them forever for that.
So it was very powerful, and it's, you know, putting such a personal thing out there into the wider world is also an act of courage on your end, because I think people probably found a lot of comfort in having that type of thing exposed to them, you know, like facing that inevitability of losing your parents, which we all have to come to terms with as we go through life. We all have to come to terms with that. Having that put out into the public space and doing it in your show, I think was a very spiritually resonant decision that, you know, I think was a...
And my mom, see, I did not, that podcast I did not want to do with my mom.
Yeah.
She's dying upstairs. I'm downstairs dealing with the reality of this. And I knew she wanted to do a podcast, and I wanted to do it, but I knew this is going to be the last podcast we do. But then, yeah, she called me upstairs. She's like, it's time to record it. And I think it was just so like prescient. She knew that in those days I was too blind and too sad and too heartbroken and too afraid of death to listen to some of the things she was saying to me. And so she put it all on the podcast. And so now I've got this like questions I have about my life and stuff. I can go back. It's like Superman going into the ice cave.
Right.
And she built into that conversation a lot of things that I can like, so I can go back and like converse with her. I think that's what she was doing. And she was such a compassionate person. And she did want people to not be afraid of death. And she did want people to know you can die gracefully and you can die consciously, and that death doesn't have to be something that you spend your whole life being terrified of. And so the fact that that conversation like made it on a Netflix, I know that would really tickle her. Like that would just be like, it's the ultimate.
Definitely impacted a lot of people, myself included, you know, really did. You're welcome. This has been such a great talk, Duncan. I will ask you one last question and then we'll wrap it up, because I know you got a phone call. What's the power of comedy to you from an esoteric perspective? Because I know you look at things in a philosophical way. If we look at what comedy has done throughout time as a kind of like an element in our toolkit, the toolkit of humanity, how important is it that we allow comedy to thrive?
Oh my God, it's so important. I mean, and I don't mean like, I really don't like the, you know, hero comedian archetype. I think, you know, in general, comedians are fools. I mean, that is sort of like, I know most of my friends are comedians. I don't mean that in an insulting way. I certainly am one. And meaning that it's like the comedy itself is generally kind of like, and it pushes against power.
Only the jester can make fun of the king, right? In the kingdom.
And it kind of pokes holes in default reality or the zeitgeist, and it's cathartic, you know. It like by blaspheming and in a way that's benevolent. I think that and by being really honest as a comedian and sort of confessing your life to strangers, I think all of these things combine in a way that give people a sense that, you know, maybe some of their stuff that they've been like trying to ignore or hide or feel ashamed of isn't quite so bad. You know, you watch Louis C.K. If you were feeling like a disgusting, neurotic person, you watch.
Like, I'm actually not that big of a piece of shit.
I'm great. I'm totally fine. And that's a gift people like that give us, you know, is that they're not just confessing in some guilt-ridden way, but they're doing it in this brilliant, beautiful, artful way that alchemizes whatever the particular negative thing is without denying that thing's reality. And in that alchemizing, turning it into something that is no longer a shadow, no longer evil, no longer necessarily the worst thing ever, And I think that that's like what makes people laugh is a release of energy, is maybe like and also, oh my God, man, I can go on and on forever about how beautiful it is to like, if you can do it, to harmonize with an audience, tune into an audience, how comedy involves listening to the audience. You're not just doing, it's not a one-sided conversation at all. And yeah, so I think that in general, you know, comedy is it's a real slippery fish. That's the other thing I like about it, is that it's like, it will not be controlled. It will not allow you to put it into a box and label it, and these are the rules of comedy, or here's what stand-up is, or here's what comedy is. It eternally like warps and shifts and transforms itself through each like particular strata of the zeitgeist. And you know, which is why some comedy ages well and some doesn't, because some comedy is a direct reflection, a warped funhouse mirror version of the particular culture of that time, and some comedy manages to transcend time, and you know, both are wonderful. So I really love its sort of you can't put it in a box. It's so beautiful in that way. And as a comedian, you know, one of the things is you're only as good as your last set. It's like, you know, you're starting over every time you get on stage. It's a new audience. It's a new day. It's a new you. And you're like, that is a really fun and sometimes frustrating part of the job. So yeah, I think it's a very healthy thing too. And, you know, I've heard all the anthropological like discussions regarding comedy and the jester, the way the sacred clown, or all that stuff. And a lot of the analysis says within tribal societies, it acts as a steam valve. So that if power is getting imbalanced,
right,
the fool kind of like, by just saying the truth in a funny way, like it could bring balance back without violence,
right,
you know.
right.
And that could be if you want to come up with like a explanation for why that archetype shows up in all cultures, that's a really smart one, if you ask me.
As Oscar Wilde said, if you want to tell the truth, make the people laugh or they will kill you.
Oh yeah, that's really good. Oh, that is good.
It's a good one, right?
I've never
it's a strong
heard that
quote.
before.
Yeah. Make them laugh. Make them laugh. And you're doing a good job of that. So, Duncan, I know you got a phone call, mate. This has been a pleasure.
Joy.
A joy, and something that I would like to repeat again. I would love to have you back down the line.
Say that.
You know, this is what I love doing, philosophizing and talking and just like going with the flow. You're perfect for it. Thank you so much. It's been a pleasure.
Thank you, man. You have made my week. Thank you for being such a great interviewer. Thank you for coming on my show. And please, let's just put it in the books. Let's just keep doing you don't have to do my podcast, but it gives me a chance to keep talking to you.
Come on. Okay, of course I want to do it. All right, brother.
And if you're ever in Austin, we got to hang out.
Oh yeah. We'll make it happen. Okay.